Hello, Professor.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you too?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much. Hey, Nasser.
Yeah.
Surya, you probably saw some of my comments, but I finally got to do grading and I loved some of your writing. Some of your sentences were so wonderful, Surya.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, really, Professor.
My pleasure. Thank you. That's why I love this job. When I get to read amazing student writing, it makes me so happy.
Good.
Let me get my PowerPoint ready here. We got Gloria coming in and Olga's here. Hey, Gloria. All right, where is my PowerPoint here? Okay. All right. Who else? Irina's coming in. Sepila's here. Hey, everybody. It is so good to see you.
Me too.
Sepida, I can tell you the same thing I told Suda. I don't know if you saw my comments yet, but oh my God, some of your sentences, Sepida, are so amazing.
Thank you.
Sapida was in the first class I ever taught you guys, and that's only a year ago. It's just amazing how hard you must be working, because I told her too, but you know, it's one thing, we all know you all are extremely intelligent and hardworking, but when you start to feel like you can use some of these more advanced sentence structures, it's another thing I just love about being a teacher is you see people grow. It's amazing. It's really, really amazing. Nasser and Mahmoud talking about computer stuff, maybe? I don't know. Hey, Ruba.
Hi.
Oh, yeah. So like usual, we'll start in about 2 or 3 minutes. Anything short questions? Anything on your mind? Any questions? Irina, hit me. What's up?
Yes, I have so big problems with this class because I don't know a lot of things, and sorry, I want to offer you. You don't give us some explanation, some examples, especially about paraphrasing, because yesterday I was taking a test for more than 6 hours, because I was so confused about paraphrasing, because this book, it was so difficult for me.
Which book?
And, Grossman.
Okay.
Grossman, because I translate it in my language because I didn't understand it in my language too, and it was so difficult to paraphrase because that I can paraphrase something, I have to understand this text or this paragraph or this book. I don't understand. I don't understand her because I know it's not my level. Its level are higher than my knowledge.
Yeah, maybe you and I can talk one-on-one, Irina, because I have lots of opinions about what you're saying, and I think it's really important that you feel safe and comfortable telling me how you feel. So I'm not saying anything you said is wrong there, but it's surprising to me because I just was grading and I saw your level of work seems completely appropriate. So we can talk one-on-one about how you're feeling, but I don't know.
I was born with this.
Yeah, exactly. No, if you need a therapist, I can be your therapist instead of being a teacher too. That's fine. I think that so. There's two things there. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna mute Mahruk. Two things. So one is however we feel about our own learning practice. That's its own thing. But as everybody comes in, of course, like I tried to say, I feel terrible that we had to cancel a class, that we had to lose 2 hours where we would talk about paraphrasing. So Irina, I think it is totally appropriate to say that you feel a little bit confused or not understanding about paraphrasing. That is totally appropriate and what we'll get to talk about today. And what I really don't want, I can't control this. You know, if people are going to be extremely anxious, people are going to be extremely anxious, but I'm here. If you want to email me or text me and say, Jeff, I'm freaking out, I'm here for you. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to find that balance there too.
Okay, if I take for a quiz, for example, at 9 p.m. and can I text you about my problem in this?
I probably won't be awake. I go to sleep usually at 9:30, but I'm up at 6 a.m. I'm more of a morning person than a night person, Irina. Fair enough. So yeah, of course, that's a fair point, right? This moment in time, it's hard to understand about boundaries and stuff like that. But I'm saying, if you email me or text me, I can, and I'm able to respond, I will. Now, you know, does that mean that I can be there with you while you're doing every assignment? Probably not. You know what I mean? So the other thing I'd say to everybody now, not just Irina, but if you're spending 6 hours on one lesson, don't. I don't know what to say, but I mean, okay, here's the other thing I can say. I'm a huge believer in this. That 6 hours, you're doing something. You're working very hard. That pays off. You're investing in your education and development as a human being. But if you're stressed about time for a grade for this class, oh my God, do not do that, right? So like, that's always the other balance too, grade versus learning, right? Like, I don't want you to stress about the grade. We'll work that out. But if you want to spend 6 hours fighting, wrestling with Grossman to get to the meaning, I think that's beautiful. I think, I mean, that's how I feel about doing things in English and in Spanish.
Okay, I tried, but you put grade to my work, and I want to get good grade, not low, but
A nine. I'll say this to everybody, not just Irina now, because I do want to move on. Irina, we should talk one-on-one. If you're feeling this anxious, I will do anything I can to help you feel less anxious. I can feel it through the computer, and it's making my heart hurt because you're such a good student. But remember, you guys, a 9 out of 10 is an A, an 8 out of 10 is a B, and 10 points out of 1,000 is, someone do the math. Ruba, who are my scientists? 10 points out of 1,000 for the whole semester is nada, is nothing. Okay. Like that's just the truth, and that's all I have to say. Can someone tell me what's 10 out of 1,000? Is it 0.1% of your grade for the semester? Is that right, Ruba? I just know Ruba. When I think of scientist, I think of Ruba because she is a scientist. But that means.
And I saw and I wrote you. You didn't fix my quiz, I don't remember 9 or 8. You don't fix about half point issue on the question.
Let's talk after class, Irina.
False and argue. 1 second. Lesson 8. You didn't fix.
Irina,
Yes.
let's talk after class because everybody's
Okay.
here and now it's just you and me talking, and I want to get started.
Okay.
Okay, come for real. Stay with me. I'll do everything I can to make you feel less anxious. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I deal with anxiety and depression. I totally understand, but so I can't control how you all feel. But if it's about the grade for this class, oh my God, you guys, do you know me by now? Like, it's all good. Like, it's the grade. If it's about the grade, you guys, oh my God. So anyway, let's get going. So again, for people who are just coming in, I saw Vlada coming in and Hangama and Masuma. I just want to say again, I am really sorry for having to cancel class and if that produced any anxiety. I also imagine for some students, they were like, yes, that's awesome. I know usually when I cancel class, students are like, I feel bad. And students are like, no, like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Like, we're good. You know, it's fine. And just from looking at other students' grades or just other lessons, I'm kind of happy. I think it gave people a lot of time to sort of catch up because most people are really kind of caught up in live time, which is great, Now, again, we did lose 2 hours to talk about paraphrasing, and that makes me sad, but we have the rest of the semester to talk about paraphrasing. And I did post a video that I recorded with another class, basically doing the same sort of type of activity that we would have done for paraphrasing as well. So here's what I want to do. Oh, I need to start sharing my screen. Okay. Here's what I want to do today. I do want to do a quick check-in. So again, if you're like, I'm so stressed and I hate everything, or I loved that class was canceled, good, you get to talk to each other about that. And then I want to introduce narrative writing because we're here, right? Like I sent out in the announcement, we are moving on to this text. So like I told you, we're done with Grossman, the hardest book that we will read this semester. And now we get to move on to a different type of writing, right? A different type of writing. So I'm going to introduce narrative writing, the structure of narrative writing. We're going to go through an example of one of the narratives in the book so that I can show you what narrative, like an example of the structure of narrative writing. And then I'm going to introduce the first major writing assignment. This is due in 2 weeks. And I'm not between, so again, if people are going, oh my God, writing assignment, oh my God. Between now and 2 weeks, we've got there's no new lessons. Nothing new is going into Canvas for the next 2 weeks. There's basically only 2 things for you guys to do for this class. So I really don't want you all to feel stressed about doing lessons in Canvas for the next 2 weeks. I want you to be reading and writing, and not worried about points. So that's kind of what we're doing today. So here's what I want you to do, just like usual in small groups. I'm going to do only about 10 minutes for the small groups today because I do want to make sure that I can introduce the structure of narrative writing. It's really important. But I am going to put you in groups and I just want you to sort of, this is a general sort of check-in. How are you feeling now that we're 1/3 through the semester? We've got plenty of time, but we've done 5 weeks. How do you feel ahead or behind in our class? Just a chance for you to sort of process some of that feeling. And then when you're in your small groups, anything else you want to share? So makes sense what I want you to talk about with your classmates. Cool. I'm going to put you in groups. Give me 1 second to open the breakout room. Let's do smaller groups, maybe 3 or 4 people today. So I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. This is your time. Let it out. Whatever you have to say, let it out. And I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Okay, room's opening now.
من ندارم دیگه برو به کار درس برش
Do you see the join breakout room, Mahruk? Eso. Masuma. Oh, poor baby. Masuma, Zamira, if you can hear me and you can go in, were you in one of the rooms, Masuma? Did you get kicked out? What happened?
Excuse me, Professor. My connecting is low.
Yeah.
My connection is low.
I understand. I definitely understand. Do you want to just mute yourself right now and wait till everyone comes back?
Okay.
Okay. How about you, Zamira? Can you, we're just doing our warm up. Can you go into a small group or do you want to wait till everyone comes back?
Hello, Professor. Yes, I want to go to the small group.
Perfect. I'll send you to group 3 right now.
Okay, thank you.
And Masuma, if you want to go back, I can send you back.
Okay, okay, Professor. Can you join me on my group?
Who are you? Who is in your group? Oh, Vlada and Mahrok?
Yeah.
Yes, room 4. Okay, thank you, Masuma.
Thank you, Professor.
What happened?
Hello.
Are you guys done? You get kicked out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why are you, he says that you're there. Wait, I'm sorry. Yes, you are done, or yes, you lost internet.
No, no, we are done, Professor.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we'll start.
Hang out 1 second. It's almost exactly 10 minutes, so I'm going to bring people back in just 1 second.
Okay.
Back row. Leave back out row, please.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. I think we are all back. All right. Anything big picture stuff? Anything worth talking about? Are we doing okay?
We are just glad that we finished Why Translation Matters.
Fair, very fair, very, very fair. Yeah, like I said a couple times, don't let that book scare you, right? The idea is to, it's like going to the gym, right? It's very painful and it's done, right? Like, and whatever learning skills, whatever reading strategies you practice for that book, I promise you, it will benefit you for the rest of your time in English. Anyway, okay, that's all. Anybody else want to add to what Liz said, or Liz just speaks for the class and says, we're glad we're done. I am too, if it was this painful. Oh, hold on. My timer's going off. Anything else? Olga, is that a hand or are you stretching? No, she's scratching. You're good. Okay, then let's talk about today. So here's the warm up. It's just for us to talk about in a big group. And remember, you can always type in the chat if you don't want to turn on your screen or unmute yourself. Of course, you're more than welcome to turn on your microphone and speak. But we're going to introduce this idea of narrative writing. So our warm up is just kind of a big group chat. What do you already know about narrative writing? If the answer is nothing, that is totally fine. But if you know something, let's hear about it. What do you remember about examples of narrative writing that you've read in the past? And if you read one of the example essays, and that means, did you start this book? If you read even one of these, did you notice anything about the essays in this book if you started to read it? And I'm just going to kind of get a list going of our ideas. So what do we know? Is that a hand, Gloria?
What do we know?
What you got? Yeah, what do you know about narrative writing? Gloria, go for it.
For me, I understand that narrative story is narrative essay is a story from my life, from the life of author's life.
Okay, perfect.
It shouldn't be too big.
Okay. What else? Ruben, did I
Special
hear you?
experience.
Good. What else? Love it.
It's spoken from first face.
Great. First person POV stands here for point of view, if you've ever seen that. So what's that mean? It means I or we, right? Usually. Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else? Yeah, Mahruk. And then go ahead, Irina. I just saw Mahruk raise her hand. Yes, please.
Action. Sorry.
I'm glad. Yeah, anyway, Mahruk, tell me.
Yes, about history, about culture, about science, about everything.
I love it. About everything. Okay, perfect. I'm going to add that about everything, about history, culture, science. So I'm going to add to this. I love that. Love it. Yes, Irina, get back in there.
I don't know how say it in English. Actions follow to each incorrectly order from one actions to second, it's like
A little bit.
logical actions. I don't know. Linear order, yes,
Yes,
beginning.
linear order. Now we're going to see some examples of this, and this book is full of lots of, so we're going to talk about the structure today, okay? And then you're going to read this book and you're going to see some essays that follow this structure sort of like perfectly, like a math equation. Then you'll start to see, of course, like anything with writing, you can kind of sort of play with this a little bit. There is some part that's personal style. So, but in general, Irina is 100% correct. Linear order, at the very least, even if you don't say, okay, on Monday we did this, then Tuesday we did that, then Wednesday after, okay, so even if you don't go full linear order, these stories, these narratives do have some sense of beginning, middle, and end, right? If you start a narrative that says, in 2012, I visited Mexico for the first time, and then you never talk about Mexico again or what happened in Mexico or when you left, that's a problem, right? So maybe you play with that in terms of style, but you do need a beginning, middle, and an end. Absolutely, absolutely, Irina. Anybody else? What you already know? Gloria, get back in there.
Can be fictional story.
Love it.
Professor, about report statement.
Get in there. Yeah, what do you mean?
Report statement.
Reporting.
Yeah, statement.
You want to say a little bit more about this? Because now this is sort of at the sentence level, I think you're talking about, sort of what these type of sentences look like. Do you want to just say a little more what you mean by this? No. That's okay, we'll look at some examples. This is already a great list. Anybody else want to add to it? This is great. This is fantastic. Can I also ask, without any stress at all, did anybody start the book or read anything in here yet? Gloria says yes.
Introduction.
Olga says yes. Sura says the introduction. Great. The introduction's like 2 pages. Great place to start. Yeah. Great. Great. Okay. So some people have, some people haven't. Very normal. That's totally fine. Okay. Any last call? Anything we want to add about what you already know before I introduce the structure and then we practice with an example?
Structure.
Mahruk, I hear you saying structure.
Yeah,
Do we all know this word? What structure means?
I think every story needed a structure.
Yeah, all good writing has a structure of some kind. I mean, your paragraphs that you write in the lessons, right? Those have a structure, right? So structure just means organization, sort of where you put information, how the information that you include connects to each other. That's kind of what I mean when I say structure and organization, right? Go ahead.
The first I think needed background about the story.
Ooh, love it.
The leader, yeah.
Good, perfect. Mahruk is saying what she thinks the structure might be. Let's go there. Let's go there. I love this idea of background. Okay. So here is so the linguistic narrative is the first big major writing assignment that I'm asking you guys to do. And this book is full of different types of narratives. And I'll read the paragraph here and then I'll talk a little bit about how this connects to our book. So the definition here, a linguistic narrative is a type of creative or academic writing that expresses the relationship between the writer's identity and their language. Now, this was like Mahruk's great point. This could be about their identity and their culture. That could be a cultural narrative. This could be about their identity and their religion. That could be a religious narrative. Their identity and their family, a family narrative, right? So I love that Mahruk was saying the top potential topics, the topics that you can choose from are very, very, very wide. Absolutely, absolutely. A historical narrative. But for us, because I spent 5 weeks making you read Why Translation Matters and thinking about language, I'm asking you to write a linguistic narrative, right? So I want you to write about how your identity intersects with a story about language use, or at least beliefs and feelings about language, again, like we've been thinking about for the last 5 weeks. Now, the objective the objective just means goal. The objective in this type of writing is to show the reader how the story being told is directly related to issues of language and culture. Now, the writer does this through narrative, telling a story. And to do this, they introduce a theme, they describe their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and then return to this theme throughout the narrative. So when you think about, okay, Jeff, a linguistic narrative, what is that? How do I do it? The structure that I want you to think about is three sort of areas: theme, narrative writing, and descriptive writing, right? Makes sense so far? I'm going to keep going. So what do I mean when I say theme, narrative, and description? So theme. A theme is introduced early in the writing. The theme is usually returned to throughout the writing. There are usually key words, ideas, or images that are repeated. Now, if this were a literature class, or if you come take 350 with me, if you're not scared off by this class, we could talk about symbolism, right? We could talk about a lot of things that you could think about as literary, but we don't need to worry about symbols, right? We just need to think about images or key words or key phrases. That's, I think, for us, a great way in 325 to start to think about how to connect back to this theme throughout the entire essay. Then usually the theme is synthesized or repeated, or it comes back at the end of the narrative. Okay, so theme introduced at the beginning. Usually there's key words or an image or some specific thing to connect to this theme, and it kind of keeps coming up throughout the essay, included in the story, and then there's a summary or a synthesis of it at the end. And again, just I'm introducing this ideas. The rest of this class, we're going to look at a story and find examples of what this actually looks like, okay? Now, we have a theme for this type of essay writing. And then we use narrative writing. So this is like all of your great ideas that you had here, especially Irina's point about linear order, beginning, middle, and an end, right? So if a narrative is a story, that means you got to have a beginning, middle, and end. We all know, I'm sure we all have a friend or family member. I won't say who it is in my family, but they're like, oh, I have a great story. And it's like, okay, and then it's like, what happened? Oh, like we went to the store and then I ran into my friend and he was really happy. And you're like, what? That's not even a story. Like nothing happened in the story, right? Like there are some sort of common elements, the things that make a story, and one of them is, as Irina said, this feeling of a linear narrative, beginning, middle, and end. So the other thing that's important, and we already talked about, first person pronouns, I and we. We use narrative writing in this type of essay throughout the entire essay. So your first essay is going to be 1,000 words. So the idea of beginning a story and ending the story, I want you to keep telling a story over that entire length of the essay. So as I've said multiple times here, the story has a beginning, middle, and end. And then here's the most important thing for us, and I think will be clear when we read through these examples in this book, which I really like this book. How to make sure your story is connected to a theme, right? Because if your story doesn't have a point, then that's good. I mean, it's better it's good to have a clear beginning, middle, and an end, right? But if you're writing a story about with a theme of language, and language isn't a part of the story you're telling, you tell a story about going to the car shop or grocery shopping and there's nothing to do with language, then we are not connecting the narrative with the theme. And I'd say this story must have a clear connection to the theme, is the biggest thing that I'm going to be looking for in the papers, right? I'm not looking for you to tell me a perfect story, but I do want to make sure that the story you choose to tell clearly connects to a theme. I got one more slide, and then all of these things are only ideas for now. We're going to look at an example together after this slide. So the last sort of type of writing that we do for this essay is called descriptive writing. And descriptive writing is used throughout your entire essay. It's a way to make narrative writing really good and rich and interesting. And that's the way that we use a lot of specific details connected to the 5 senses. So, where you describe what something felt like or smells like or looks like, where you give really specific details, again, that just makes a story much more interesting, right? So descriptive writing, these type of details, are a part of making your story, the beginning, middle, and end, interesting, compelling to the reader. Now, as I say here, this allows the reader to see the things that are a part of the narratives. And sometimes this descriptive writing can be connected to the theme, but it really doesn't have to. And we're about to look at this story together. And one thing I just want to say here is, I think when I teach this type of writing, a lot of students, we're going to look at a story together, or you're going to look at your own writing and you're going to think, okay, like, is this sentence an example of descriptive writing, or is this sentence an example of narrative writing? And of course, the real answer I just want to say is, in a good essay, all of these three kind of go together, right? So I don't want you to think that it's like tagging in. It's like, okay, I wrote a theme sentence. Now I need a narrative sentence. Now I need a descriptive sentence. It's not that black and white. Do you know what I mean? So when we start to look at these examples in the book, I want you to start to just notice, do you see examples of even key words, key phrases where there's some specific descriptions, right? And I do want you to think about, okay, most of these stories use narrative writing for the entire essay because they're telling stories, right? So what can I say here? Instead of me giving you a quiz about, is this a narrative sentence or a descriptive sentence? That's not what I want to do. What I want you to start to notice is how these three parts and types of writing show up in narratives. Does that make sense? Any questions about theme, narrative, and description before we look at the example together?
Professor, you talk about three type. Your means the body, like an essay?
I don't, for this type of writing, Mahruk, I don't even want to think about body paragraphs, introduction, or get that out of your head. We're not doing that. This is not a 5-paragraph essay. Yeah, I didn't mean get that out of your head. That sounded more short, and I didn't sound it to, but I think when you're at this level, Mahruk, you know, and when you keep going, the 5-paragraph essay it's really helpful to learn a style of writing, right? But in a history class, in a nursing class, in an ECE class, you will never write a 5-paragraph essay. Things like thesis statement, topic sentence, those are really important. That's very helpful information. But organization here, you know, when you start to read this, you're not going to see a 5-paragraph essay. So I love the question, but I do want to say, so instead of thinking, ooh, is that a body paragraph? I want you to think about types or styles of writing that you notice, even within the same essay. Does that make sense?
Yes. My goal is a study about history.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
well, great. I mean, narratives are kind of like personal history, right? Like people writing about their own personal history, their own personal experience. So when you go to your history classes, again, in ESL, now this is just teacher Jeff's opinion, okay? This is not part of the grade or class. I think that sometimes, I think that in the past, there was kind of like a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea that ESL students are not the same as college students. And I just think that's wrong. And I think that because there was this belief 30, 40 years ago, do you know what I mean? A long time ago, it was, well, we can't teach ESL students these different types of writing. We're only going to teach them one, and that's going to be the 5-paragraph essay. And we're going to sort of show them like, that's good writing. Well, like I said, that's one type of writing. And it's really helpful to understand that writing has rules and writing has structures, but there are so many different types of interesting writing. So at 325, I had this last semester too, and I'm thinking of, her name was Amina, the student named Amina. She was like, but so we're not going to write any 5-paragraph essays in this class? And I was like, no. And she was so mad. She was so mad. And I understand. But let it go, because you're not going to write 5-paragraph essays in your history class. You know what I mean? Love it. Should we look at the example together? Unless there's other questions, I just want to look at the example. So I'm going to read, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to project this on the screen, but I'm going to read, let me find the page number. If you have your book, I'm going to start reading on page 15, A Map of Lost Things. if you don't have the book or can't find it yet, also in the chat, I did make a PDF just of this one story because I did ask you guys to buy the book. But if you need it and you want to look at it right now, in the chat is uploading a copy of the PDF. And I'm going to just project it onto the screen. I'm going to show it on the screen so you can follow along with me on the screen that way as well. But for this first example, I'm just going to read the story. So you can close your eyes and listen. You can follow along in the book. You can follow along on the screen, whatever you want. And all I'm asking you to do while you listen to me read the story is, if you have your book, especially, you know, if you have a pencil, take a note. And because what I want you to look at is, where do you see examples of a theme, narrative writing, and descriptive writing? That's all I want you to do while you listen to the story. Do you see examples of theme, descriptive writing, or narrative writing in this story? Make sense what I want you to do?
Yes.
Anybody, thank you, Ting. Anybody unclear before I get started? Because I'm going to start reading and then it's about the 10 or 15-minute story. So if you want to turn your screen off while you listen, whatever you need, but I'm just going to read through the story and really, I want to let you focus on seeing the structure in this story. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. And again, just because it's just going to be me talking for a little while, I am going to mute everybody. You know that I'll ask you to talk after we're done reading, but I'm going to mute you. And I'm going to minimize my screen. Great. All right, so this is the first narrative that we're going to read together. It is called A Map of Lost Things. And again, for people with the book, it's here on page 15. A Map of Lost Things by Jamila Osman. When I was in the 4th grade in Portland, we spent 3 months studying the Chinook salmon, the Oregon state fish. Our unit culminated in a class field trip to a small creek off the Columbia River Gorge. At Eagle Creek, a small basin where the Columbia River runs into the Pacific, the Chinook salmon comes to spawn, having crossed thousands of miles of sea in a journey that takes many years. When the female salmon finds her way back to the same estuary of her birth, she will lay anywhere from 3,000 to 14,000 eggs before dying. The estuary is where the river meets the sea. It is the collision of 2 worlds. It is where the new world meets the old world, where life crashes headfirst into death. Death is always the final act. As we watched the salmon return to the estuaries they'd left so many years ago, I was filled with a jealousy that hollowed out my chest. I envied the salmon and their bloated bodies, the way they shimmered under the water when the sun's rays caught against their scales. I've returned to this same creek many times as an adult, and I still feel the same sense of jealousy I felt at 9 years old. I sit on the wet earth and hold my knees against my chest as I watch the salmon spawn. On clear nights at the creek, the moon floats just over the surface of the water. The landscape is blurred and distorted, hazy and untrue in the mirror of the water. I look at the moon against the river and feel a hunger crest in me. The salmon return at the same time every year, haggard, gray, molten. I envy the certainty of their journey. Sometimes I run into hikers and tourists as I walk the trail to the creek. Where are you from? They will inevitably ask me. Portland? I answer their question with a question of my own. Portland? My last syllable lifts its head in desire. Nobody leaves home thinking they will never be able to return. I wonder what my parents would have taken with them when they left their home in Somalia in the late 80s. Who might they have made amends with? What old haunts would they have visited one last time if they knew they would never be back? My parents ended up in Oregon, and by the time I was in middle school, we had already lived in 5 different apartment complexes. When my teachers would ask me where I was from, I would shrug. I'd already learned that to be part of a diaspora was to live freely, to make no promises. In phone calls to faraway relatives, my parents always swore they would return, but distance and time makes liars of us all. It was not that my family disliked Portland. We loved many things about the city, especially its spring days, warm and wet, but it was a cautious love. My parents had loved a place once before, and neither of them had ever fully recovered from the war that had leveled Somalia in the early 90s or its aftermath. How could they recover? War is not a cough, it is a cancer. The Somali government officially collapsed in 1991. My parents, abroad at the time, found themselves unable to return. Newly married, my mother pregnant with me, they lived for a brief time in Canada. During their first winter in Edmonton, there was a devastating snowstorm. My mother had never seen snow before. Her lips and knuckles were always bleeding in the cold. Everything in this new world was a small wound. My father, previously a student, became a cab driver in this new country. It didn't take him long before he no longer needed to use a map to take people to the places they needed to go, banks and doctor's appointments, hair salons and shopping malls. Soon he knew his way around Alberta so well that if he didn't speak with an accent, one would have thought he was born and raised there. He knew which roads to take and which to avoid. He knew the fastest route to the airport and where to find the back roads when the city closed around him like a fist. My father always kept an atlas in the glove compartment of our family's minivan. Before road trips, he would pull it out and lay it flat on the dashboard, showing us where we were going. He would run a finger back and forth between small streets and major roads, rivers and borders. My younger sister, Ayan, and I would fight over who would get the privilege of unfolding the map for him. When it was my turn, I savored the crinkle of the parchment and the slow blooming of the world in front of me. Maps held a type of magic for my father. In our living room, he would pull out world maps, drag a finger through an ocean, point to Saudi Arabia and say, "This is where my mother is." Other times, he would point to where his aunts and uncles and various cousins lived, Somalia, India, Denmark, Canada, hundreds and thousands of miles apart, but neighboring countries in his heart. My father knew how to get everywhere. It was what we always admired most about him. But even he, who could name the capitals of countries all over the world, could never figure out how to get back home. After 4 years in Alberta, my parents arrived in Portland in 1996. They cobbled together a life and gave birth to 4 more children. They did their best to raise us in a world they no longer recognized. Portland was nothing more than the city in which we lived until it became suddenly and without warning the city in which my sister died. The day after her funeral, my mother and I sat on the couch holding hands. "This was never supposed to be home," she said through her tears. "But Ayan is here. How can we ever leave?" We buried my sister and we put down roots. Grief transforms topography. On a map, I can point to the intersection where the car accident took my sister's life, the street where the funeral home is located, the cemetery where she's buried. But a map doesn't show the blood pooling on the pavement, the glass scattered at the edge of the road, the skid marks, the acrid smell of burning rubber. A map does not proclaim that the United States is Indian country, occupied land. On a map, someone can trace a finger from one anglicized city name to another and forget these lands were and are known by other names. Maps are a polite fiction. They never tell the whole story. They don't mark important things like graves or genocides. 30 years after the ousting of British and Italian colonial forces from Somalia, a civil war erupted, a volcano turning the country to ash. The northern region declared itself an autonomous state called Somaliland. "We are our own country," they proclaimed as the war raged on. They drew the cloak of British borders tight around themselves. When the colonists came, they committed our edges to paper. They tried to cage us with their borders. A country is impossible to contain. A people are impossible to boil to the silt of parchment. A map is only one story. It is not the most important story. The most important story is the one a people tell about themselves. I visit Hargeisa, a capital of Somaliland, for the first time in 2012. The northern region of Somalia had remained relatively stable and peaceful since the mid-90s, even as the southern region was besieged by al-Shabaab and US drone strikes. I imagine my parents' first airplane ride, their racing hearts and quick breathing. Maybe they dug their fingers into their thighs, their nails making half moons on their skin. I'm not the first to cross an ocean in search of something elusive and intangible. I think of the war and the period of mass exodus where everyone who was able to free the country left. Only those who were too poor or too old or too full of hope stayed behind. Hope makes children of us all, foolish and reckless and devout. Hargeisa is not what I expect it will be, but the things we wait for the longest seldom are. The city is dry and the air crackles. The dirt is fine and coats clothes and skin. The trees are scraggly and flimsy. Everywhere I look, there are buildings collapsing in on themselves, piles of concrete and empty houses. Hargeisa is the city of my mother's birth, the city where my grandmother cut her teeth on the rough realities of womanhood. My grandmother, who lived with us for a few years in Portland before moving back home because she missed it so much, shows me around the city. She is embarrassed by the men in FC Barcelona shirts and the way they shuffle, dragging donkeys down dirt roads, hustling lukewarm water in enormous canteens. She's embarrassed by the piles of trash that stink in the blazing heat of a Hargeisa afternoon. It is an embarrassment that is tempered by her love for this place. Even here, in the land of my ancestors, I wear my foreignness like an ill-fitting dress. When I go to the market with my grandmother, shopkeepers leer at me and call me the American girl. I wonder what part of my body has betrayed me. I wonder in what way I am branded. They wink at me and wave their products in my face. Spend your American dollars here. Somalis call those of us who return to visit the Hakan Selis. It is a story in two parts. The Hakan means culture. Selis is a return. We are a roving tribe of wanderers, scattered siblings, lost youth, reluctant expatriates, victims of impossible and auspicious circumstances. Everyone looks at us like we are lost. They ask us what we've come to find. We have no answers. A body always returns to the place that shaped it. A body always returns to its ghosts. For years, scientists have speculated as to how salmon find their way back to their natal streams. One widely accepted hypothesis states that when salmon are young, they imprint the pattern of Earth's magnetic field where they are born. Years later, this memory serves as an internal GPS. The last stretch of a salmon's journey is the most dangerous. The closer it gets to home, the more perilous the trek becomes. Sailors used to call salmon the leaping fish. They launch their bodies over entire waterfalls and sometimes land directly in the mouths of waiting bears. Today, the Chinook salmon is on the endangered species list. Fluctuating sea temperatures, man-made dams, and declining water levels make the journey home nearly impossible. Every spring, fish biologists report increasingly high numbers of salmon carcasses in local rivers. According to a study conducted by scientists from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Oregon salmon are slowly being pushed north toward Alaska as a direct result of climate change. As ocean temperatures continue to rise, salmon will seek out waters that better mirror the conditions to which they're adapted. In time, some species of salmon may disappear completely from the Pacific Northwest. In the summer of 2015, 1 year after my sister's death, my parents, my 4 siblings, and I take a trip back to Edmonton, Alberta. Canada is our shared ground zero, my family's original sin. My father has made the trip enough times that he's committed the route to memory. There is no need to consult a map. I now wonder if maps have lost their magic for him, if he too has recognized that the places to which we are most desperate to return might not exist at all. Driving south on US 95, we come to a small stretch of unincorporated land between the United States and Canada. I ask my father to pull over, and I get out of the car. I cry on the side of the road. I'm mourning my sister, our shared childhood, the unfamiliarity of the world that now beckons me forward. 1 foot in Canada, 1 in the United States. I am a woman like the women before me, legs spread indecently, straddling worlds, caught between cities and countries and continents. On that strip of land between the 2 countries, I realize I have always belonged everywhere at once, on the road, in liminal spaces, in the disputed territory between Somalia and Ethiopia, where my father spent the ragged days of his youth. I've always belonged at the beginning of the world, and where it seems to end, where the sky meets the sea, where the sea meets the land, on a plain where the 2 become indistinguishable from each other, and you can no longer tell if you are going home or leaving it. Where are you from? People still ask me, but the answer is not simple. I'm from a place beyond the scope of any map or road atlas. I'm from a house of borrowed things, a land of irreconcilable and devastating losses, a terrain marked by grief. I'm from nomads who moved in search of water, carving a home wherever they ended up, like water carves its shape into rock. I am from a wild hope, a blinding courage, a blur and madness uncharted by any cartographer. I am from a land unmapped and entirely my own. When I visit Somaliland for the first time, I stay long enough to imagine I will be there forever. Friends from Portland call me and ask when I will return home. Their questions jar me. As I pack to leave, my grandmother asks me to stay with her. I tell her I will return soon. We are always making promises we cannot keep. Go or stay, either way, something is lost. Home is not an answer to a question. It is my grandmother's front porch where I first saw how dark the night was supposed to be. It is the swimming pool in our first apartment complex in Portland where I learned to see without looking, underwater with my eyes closed like the mermaid I knew I was. It is the spot where my sister is buried. It is Eagle Creek where the salmon spawn and then die, using their last reserve of energy to protect their eggs. The journey home is arduous. Surviving costs something. Returning costs something more. Will I return to the creek when the Chinook salmon no longer swim in these 2 warm waters? These days, the creek fills me with sadness as fewer and fewer salmon survive the journey each year. The world is changing, and I'm trying not to be leveled by it. I'm trying to find my place in it. A part of me will always be the girl who watched the salmon return, even when there comes a day when they do not. Where my sister used to be, there is only her memory. Soon, where the salmon used to spawn, there will only be their ghosts. To love a thing is to steel yourself against its eventual absence. I'm learning to mourn a thing before it is lost. 2 months after I get my driver's license, my parents finally let me drive to my friend Sarah's house, alone. She doesn't live far away, and I won't need to take a highway to get there. It's winter, and it gets dark early. I promise them I'll be home before the sun sets. On my way home, I take a wrong turn. I do not recognize it until I find myself in a part of Portland I do not recognize. At night, the city is strange and unfamiliar, cloaked in its own uncertainty. The fog swallows what little light my car pitches against the dark. I look around for a landmark, a breadcrumb, anything that will lead me home, but I find nothing. I am always getting lost. I think it is because I have no point of reference. My heart can't spin itself like a top and tell me what direction to go in. I'm 16 and easily roused to panic. I call my father. I put him on speaker and leave the phone on my lap as I continue to take wrong turn after wrong turn. My grip on the steering wheel tightens. I begin to cry as soon as I hear his voice. I am stuttering and my words tumble over one another in their haste to get out of my mouth. I hear my mother in the background. Is she crying? What happened? Is she okay? I hear her decibel level rising with each question. My father has always been the calm to my mother's wild panic. Are you driving? He asks me. Pull over. I pull into the parking lot of an abandoned building. I tell him I am lost. He asks me for the name of the street I am on and then instructs me to wait in my car with the doors locked. I do as he asks, and eventually he pulls up beside me in the battered white minivan we've had for way too long. I roll down my window and snivel. Follow me, he says, and I do. I follow him all the way home. All right. So just take a second. These stories are beautiful and powerful, and I think it's good to just take a breath. So what I want us to do is I'm going to put you back in your small groups. And what I'd really like you to do is first just, I always share, reading these stories can make me really emotional. So if you need to take a breath, take a pause, whatever, if you just want to talk about how your thoughts and feelings as a response to the story, that's beautiful. Take your time, do that, be respectful to yourself. And after you've had a few minutes to just sort of talk to each other about the basic normal stuff, did you like it? What'd you think? How'd you feel? Then I'd like you to just go through it, right, together. And where do you think you saw the theme? What do you think the theme of this story is, right? Where do you see examples of narratives, right? I'll just tell you right now, this whole essay is one big narrative, but inside of it, we have lots of different stories, right? There's several different stories. The story about her getting lost in Portland at the very end, that's kind of one story with a beginning, middle, and end by itself, right? And then also, where did you find examples of really descriptive writing? I'll just tell you, for me, when I think about this story, a really clear example is when she's talking about her sister, the car crash, and then she lists blood dripping and shattered glass and the tire marks on the road and the smell of the rubber, right? There's a lot of examples of very descriptive writing for the five senses all throughout this essay, but that's one that really stands out for me when I read it. So, like I said, just talk to each other, basic stuff, what'd you think, what'd you like, and then talk to each other about theme, narrative, and descriptive writing. I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to just talk to each other alone, and then I'm gonna come into each of the groups as well and just sort of see how you're feeling and if you have any questions. Make sense? If it does, just give me a thumbs up. You don't need to say anything. Thank you, Ruba. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Olga. So I'm gonna open the rooms back up, put you back in there with each other, give you some time to just be alone together, and then I'll see you guys in your small groups in a few minutes, okay? Rooms are open back up. Marok is alone. So Masuma, I need to send you back to room 4, and Hangama, same thing if you can. Great. Come here, Chico.
Just we are here.
So have you finished all the first book?
No, I have just the third
Mm.
chapter. I should, I think, do the like a discussion or something like that. We don't have any homework yet about this book.
No, not yet. I think it's the one that we got to listen to a TED talk, the video. I think it's about this book. So the topic is a story that is only one story is dangerous. I think it has some kind of connection with this book. So teacher asked us to watch that
Yeah,
video.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
About, you mean the lesson of the discussion? Lesson 14, I think.
I didn't know if the lesson 14 is something to do with this video.
Yeah, about the danger of a single story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's maybe the same ideas between the discussion and this story. Maybe.
So we are still in the break room, right?
Huh? Can you say
Are we in the main room or the?
Yeah, but I think our professor maybe visit other.
We are too early to go back.
Yeah.
Oh, we got too early here, right?
Yeah.
Only 3. Oh, yeah, lesson 14. This is the discussion.
Yeah.
Potential of a single story.
What you guys doing?
Oh,
We're waiting
for we are waiting for you. We came back too early.
It's going to be a lot. So if you guys want to work individually, if you guys are my quiet individual workers, that's fine. But it's going to be, I only talk to one group, so I got to go talk to the other 2 groups too.
Okay.
Anything you want to talk about with me while I'm here, or you just want to keep going by yourself?
You can go.
Take, like, get out of here. No, I understand. I know for some students love group work and some students hate it. So if you want to keep working by yourself, that is fine. Just be ready to give me some examples, okay, of theme, narrative, and descriptive. Cool?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So before I go, what do you think when I say theme? What's going on? Where's the theme in this story?
It's that to find a way home, a real home in your heart. It's not about anywhere you go, or it can a resource you got to find by yourself. Not anything on the map.
Love it. Ting, you were perfect. I'd say the two most important words you said there are home. I think home is the theme. And then you connected to an image, a word that she uses a lot. The map is a way that she talks about home a lot, right? And I think there's one other thing she talks about a lot with home, which is, Surah, you want to tell me what you're thinking of?
Yeah, maybe I have the same idea with Tank.
Give it.
Yeah, it's about what she said about the maps and the countries.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And if you do want to talk to each other, or something I'm going to tell you to think about too, what's up with the salmon? What's up with the fish? Why does she talk about the fish so much? Think about that. Be ready to talk about it.
Yeah, it's this the story
Yeah.
of her narrative.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, good. All right, I'll be back. Keep working quietly and individually. You guys are great.
Okay, thank you.
We talked before you came back. Okay. So I think this also uses the way the salmon came back and to spawn. It's a similar way of the people going back to their real home. It's like a way they found out what is real. What they really belong to.
Yeah, you mean is the same what's the human doing when they are come back to their home, the salmon doing?
Yeah. And even it's so like desperate, and that's like the salmon died before after they spawned, they gave birth to their what's that called?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it. They gave birth to their babies. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a kind of hard journey for them, and this is kind of like the way of human find a path to have a real settle
Yeah.
In their own life.
Yeah, I think she used that example, showing us the same was the human doing, or maybe another animals can do the same thing what the salmon did it, sorry. I don't know. The meaning of her example, or maybe of her story, it's about the map. It's of like the map we can lost things. Because the topic of this narrative, it's a map of lost things. What do you think?
Huh?
I don't know.
Okay, so we have figured out the theme, but okay, I just don't know how to use the long paragraphs and long distances to make a story like that all the authors to do in the books. How could people not, how could people have a story? It's just you can say it's just a simple story, but they describe it with a lot of images, right?
Yeah, a lot of images, a lot of
Details.
details they added in their stories then.
Yeah, and that's pretty well they could still come back to the theme. Yeah, so before teacher asked us to discuss on the board, and it's a way that we got to have a theme on the discussion. And sometimes, you know, I will talk about something else, then I will just left away from the topic.
Yeah.
So I try to follow the way the teacher asks us to do. So I think the theme we have used before.
Yeah.
Like we use it in writing, and don't leave the topic away, too far away. Okay.
Yeah. You are right.
I haven't started reading this book. Was this author born in the USA?
I don't think so. Of this story?
Yeah.
Because the name Jamila Osman, I think it's Arabic name. I don't know.
We didn't hear you.
I was just gonna notice. I was saying, okay, we're coming back. Our last 15 minutes here. I think we're waiting for maybe 1 or 2 more people. Yep. That was fun. I wish we had more time. I could talk about this stuff forever.
It's a hard topic for us.
To think about this topic for yourselves. Yeah, it's always tricky, right? Sanda uses this book too. She's the one who told me I should use it, and it's tricky. And this is a good way to transition also, Gloria. Yeah, how much of yourself do you want to share in your narrative? You know, how open to be, how you know, like it's really tricky. And that's why I was trying to say, and you know me also, I hope you guys know me, take care of yourselves. If it's too much, you turn off your video, take a break, take a breath, you know, like it's all good. I never want you guys to feel unsafe or uncomfortable. I just think for all of us, and you guys in different ways, because I never had to move and leave everything, but I've had really intense experiences about home. Yeah, I mean, like it's meaningful. Like we remember this, and therefore the language sticks because we are thinking about something that means a lot to us. But yeah, it's if it feels overwhelming too much, take a break, give yourself some love. It's all good. That makes perfect sense. You know, that makes perfect sense. So just because of time, I'm going to sort of summarize the things that I heard from all of the different groups. You guys were so fantastic. I'm going to summarize all of the things I heard from the different groups, and then I'll put this in the PowerPoint so that you can refer back to it later when you think about, okay, where was the theme? So I said to each group, I think the main #1 theme for this story is home.
Home, yeah.
And kind of leaving and returning to home, and feeling like you don't know where home is and wanting to go back home. I mean, once we've said that there's this theme of home, we can connect all these different ideas, right? Oh, I feel home. I don't feel like home. Where is home? I mean, that idea, right? And I'll also say that I think there are 2 big images connected to home. There are more than this, I want to be clear, right? But there's 2 main images for home, and I think they are the salmon and maps. Now, I will ask just really quickly, what's up with the salmon? How do salmon connect to this idea of home? Does anyone want to practice saying it?
Because they are always return to home.
Love it.
Return to home.
Love it. Irina's saying because
after a big trip.
Very big trip. Yeah. Good. Irina's saying because they always return home. Did anybody else want to add?
To die.
Yeah. to thank you, Gloria. Make us all sad. Yes, to die. But she does in the story. She says everything ends in death. Mahruk, do you want to add something real quick? Oh, she doesn't know. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Gosh, sorry.
You're good.
Okay. So salmon birthed in river, salmon dead in river. She born in Somali. She may be back for the end of life in Somali. This story talk about 2 same life. She and salmon, life of I don't know. Her life like life of salmon.
Yes, I love it. Good.
Born in this.
Okay, her life. I'm gonna just for time. I want to make sure. So I totally agree. And if we had more time, I would just let you keep going. But I'll say I think she wants her life to be like the salmon because the salmon always get to go home. If you go back and look at the beginning of the story on the first few pages, she said, let me pull it up on the first page 15. She says, I think here, actually it's 16. She says, I still feel jealousy. She's jealous of the fish because they always get to go home. And again, you see it, why I was saying the theme gets introduced at the beginning, and then we understand by the end. She says, I was jealous of the fish. And again, very normal the first time you read this to be like, jealous of a fish? Like, what is wrong with this lady? She's crazy. But by the end, you understand. Her whole story is trying to find home. She goes back to Canada. She goes back to Somalia. She's always trying to find this feeling, but that's different than the fish, right? The fish go home to die, Gloria. The fish go home every year. Every year, the fish know exactly where they're going, right? The fish know exactly where they're going. So beautiful. So I was, as Mahrok was talking, I was just sort of listing examples of these different sort of stories inside the big story, right? We get a story of her visit to Somalia. We get a story about her getting lost in Portland. We get a story of her dad as a cab driver. We get a story about her going back to Canada. That's where she stops on the side of the road and starts crying. We get the story of the fish. Like, we get a lot of details, right, about the estuary where they're born and they go, and the river and the bears. We get a lot of details about the beginning, middle, and end of how the fish spawn and then come back to the river, right? So again, don't worry too much about trying to, you don't, for your essay, you don't need to tell me 5 stories inside of one story, right? But I do want you to start to see examples of story for us. For this essay just means beginning, middle, and end. And all of these examples have a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And the last one, you guys did so amazing with this one. I could think of so many examples that you came up with, but fog at night in Portland, the half moons on the skin, the dirt and trees in Somalia, that whole paragraph. If you want to see examples of descriptive writing, there's 2 paragraphs where she's describing this city she's never been to. We get so many details, you guys. The trees are scraggly and flimsy. Then we get really specific details. She's embarrassed by the men in FC Barcelona shirts, dragging donkeys down dirt roads, hustling lukewarm waters in enormous canteens. Canteens are big containers for water, right? So there's a lot of great descriptive writing in these paragraphs on page 20 and 21. Yeah, lots of rich and deep detail here. So yeah, we could say lots of other examples. So we've got 9 minutes. I can do it. So I don't want to rush at the end here, but does this start to make sense? We've got plenty of time to practice this, and we've got lots more examples in this book. But does this idea, at least theme, narrative, and details, descriptive, does this make sense to you guys? Gloria says yes. I see this. That's good. I see thumbs. Okay, great. So let's talk about what we're going to do, right? Like, what am I asking you to do? So here's how we're going to do this. So before 10/7, so like I said, for the next 2 weeks, if you have lessons that you want to do to catch up, that's great, do that. But I'm not adding anything new into Canvas. The only thing I'm asking you to do is keep going. I'm not giving you reading quizzes on this. I'm not going to make you do a bunch of work with this. These are examples. And next week we get to talk about some of these stories together, but I'm not telling you, you have to read story, this story and that story right now. Go through the book. My suggestion is start to read the story. And if you hate it, skip it, move on, look at the next one, find one you like and read it. And I'll also tell you in Canvas, if you go to the home page, and if you go to Professor Jeff's course materials, you will see I have made recordings, audio recordings for I think 8 of these stories. So again, if you want to start there and you want to just start with the ones that I've made recordings for, do that. There's also a really, really wonderful one that is not a writing. It's an example of a graphic novel. It's got, like, if you see, it's like pictures. I love this one, you guys. It's so beautiful. So you could do that one if you're stressed about time and you feel like, oh my God, I can't read 10 pages. This one is beautiful, beautiful. And it uses all of these same structures, I promise. So start there if you're scared about reading too much, right? So does that make sense? Just start reading this book. Start reading this book and read. And I'm going to say again, read as much as you can. The more examples you see, I promise, the better your essay will be. But also, I don't want you to feel stressed like, oh my God, I have to read 100 pages in a week. Not what I'm trying to do. Not what I'm trying to do. So once you've done that, right, once you've started to read some of these examples, once you've listened to me recording some of them, then you will be ready to do this linguistic narrative invention activity. And all I want to do is show you what this is and how to do it. So again, it shows up as a quiz, but the reason it shows up as a quiz is because that's the easiest way to give you the points. I'll promise you right now, if you follow these instructions and do what I'm asking you to do, you're going to get 10 points. So and the idea for this invention activity, I'm thinking of Irina in our small groups was saying, okay, this makes sense. I kind of get it. Like, but how am I going to write it myself? How am I going to sit down and write one of these? That's the goal of this activity, is to get you started, right? To get you started. So the first one, these questions are just to think about some of the books. Which narrative from a map is only one story is your favorite? No minimum word count. Just tell me, which one do you like the most? As of next week, 1 week from today, what's your favorite? Why is it your favorite? 50 words. Get the point. Next, in your opinion, what is the theme of your favorite narrative, right? So what's the theme of the one that you chose? And I'm suggesting asking, quote, and cite at least one sentence that you think is an example of the theme. And again, you're not going to get this wrong. If you're wrong, you'll still get the points. This is just practice for you to try and identify these things that we did today, okay? Question 4, more practice paraphrasing. Do your best. Just try to paraphrase part of a narrative from the essay. You can include the page number so that I know which sentences or paragraphs. I'll probably know because I know all these stories. But again, basically paraphrase in this example means retell the story, right? Like in your own words, what happened? If I ask you, what happens in this story, you're paraphrasing, right? Because it's what happened in the book in your own words. Now, here's where I'm going to introduce the essay, and we'll talk much more about this next week, okay? So I don't want you to feel like we're blowing through this. We have lots of time, and I'll just say again, I've said this so many times today, you know me. If we need more time, we'll make more time. I don't care, that's fine. So the instructions for the linguistic narrative. So like I said, I'm asking you to write an essay that's connected to this theme of language, right? Her theme is about home. Now, you could think about home and language. That might go together. That's totally fine. But remember, we spent 3 weeks talking about some of the language ideologies in Why Translation Matters. So for this assignment, for this writing, I'm asking you to choose just one. If you think more than one is good, you can do that. But one of these ideologies as your theme. So languages are living things, so they cannot be tamed or regulated. Good translation is possible. There's a difference between fidelity and literalism, right? So some things that might be really easy for you guys is this: good translation as a theme. That's very doable for everyone in this class. I've read your writing. Translation is important for human history. Translation keeps all language fresh and healthy. I want you to choose one of these language ideologies and make that your theme for your writing. Now, Ruba, and again, I'm thinking of Ruba and Irina's group. My goal here is that if you choose your theme, my dream, it will help you know which story to pick. I think sometimes students think, oh, I have to just choose a story from my life and tell that story. But not every story has a theme. Do you know what I mean? Like, not every story has a clear meaning. And that's why I'm encouraging you, I'm suggesting to you, start with the theme and then think, okay, good translation is possible. Can you think of a time in your life where you felt that way, or where that was an important part of your life? Or translation is very important for human culture. Can you think of a story from your life where you felt like that was true, right? So start with the theme. So again, I'm going to go back into Canvas now. So I'm asking you for this question: which one do you think that you'll write about, right? And by the way, this is not your final answer. If you choose this and then decide you want to change, that's totally fine too. So that's all question 5 is. Copy and paste one of these. Copy and paste. Next one, this is where, like, I'm thinking again of Irina, where you get to start thinking about what you will write. Why'd you choose this one? 50 words, no right or wrong answer. Do you have a personal story that is directly connected to this theme? Now, here's where there is one wrong answer. Yes. Is the only way to get this point? The answer better be yes, because if the answer is no, don't write about that Story.
Mm.
I had too much coffee today, you guys. And then question 8, briefly describe the story. What happened? Again, I'm not telling you to write all your story now, but what is that story about? And question 9 is where I really am going to push you to think a little bit about how do you think this is connected to your theme? And I want to look at these before you start to write your essay, because if I look at question 9 and you wrote 100 words, you're going to get the points. But if I say, this isn't clear yet, I don't see the connection between the story and the theme, then we can talk about that before you start to write your long essay. Makes sense? Okay. It's 2:15. I love and respect your time. If you got to go, go, but I can hang out and answer questions. So if you need to go, you're beautiful and wonderful. Otherwise, let's keep going. Gloria's doing the single ladies, the Beyonce video. She's giving me the put a ring on it. Gloria, go for it. Tell me.
I want to ask about the due date. We don't have the due date to the narrative story, yes?
There right now, these 2 assignments will have due dates. So the invention activity is due 1 week from today. I want you to do this before next Wednesday, because next Wednesday we get to talk about these ideas. Right now, I'm saying the essay will be due in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, excuse me. If we need more time, we'll add more time. I don't even want you, unless you feel great and comfortable and you're happy and everything is perfect and clear, then you can start writing, fine. But all I really want you to do for the next week is read and do this invention activity. And then we have 2 more hours next week to talk about it and really get you ready to write.
Next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday. This invention activity is due, I think in Canvas, it should be due October 7th, right? October 7th.
But the narrative also October 7th, no?
October 14.
It should be 14, and like I'm saying, if that date is stressing you out, let it go, because if we all agree that it's stressing us out in 1 week, we'll push it back. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Cool. ¿Qué más? What else?
I have a question.
Sapide, go on.
I should choose just one story from this book?
Okay, so you should read as many as you can, but for the first questions on the invention activity, all you need to do is choose one.
Okay.
All you need to do is choose one. And I'm very nice as a person, so if you choose the one we just read, I'll probably still give you the point anyway. I think you will learn more if you choose a different story and practice finding the theme. I think that will help you learn more.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? Everything's perfectly clear? I hope so. I know you guys, right? You're ready to do this activity, to do this quiz. You guys are ready to try. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you read as much as you can and then go for it, and then we can talk about it next week.
Professor, please tell about summary.
Summaries?
Yeah.
We're gonna we don't need summaries right now. Don't worry about it too much, Mahro. We're gonna, because we missed the class being live together. Again, if you're still scared of paraphrasing, watch that video. I know it's not us, it's different, but it is gonna help you a little bit. We're going to do paraphrasing and summary later in the semester when we talk about your research paper and hyperfocus, okay? But for this, I don't want you to stress too much about paraphrasing and summarizing. I really want you to start to focus on connecting theme and narrative. That's what this whole paper is about.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. What else? Anybody else? I know you're ready. That you guys were great. I mean, this was a great class today. I feel like for me, I thought it was great, and I think you guys did great, and I think you're ready to jump in. And I promise you, I feel so I feel a little guilty that people were so scared of why translation matters, but I promise you're gonna like it, because when you read these stories, you're gonna be like, oh man, this is so easy. This is a dream. And I like that feeling. I like when students read and go, this is easy. That's a magical thing. That's magic when it happens. At least in your second, third, fourth, or fifth language. Cool. All right, that's all I have. If you have questions for me, I can stay and hang out, but otherwise we are done. I will post this video and this PowerPoint I'll post the PowerPoint right now because I think it is very helpful for you as you start to think about the structure. So I'll post that now. You should all have the book, but I'll post the PDF of this story too, just in case you want an electronic copy. And I'll post the video for today as soon as Zoom tells me it's done and I can post it. It was really good to see you guys again. I did not know how much I missed you last week. Bye, Ruba. Bye, Liz.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye, Mahrok. Bye, Gloria. Questions, my people who are still hanging out. Surah, you got a question?
Yeah, I can set up appointments with you, Professor, today or next, and any day and any time you like this week.
Yeah, what, any day, anytime?
Yeah, you like, or you can like set up appointment with you.
I'm thinking, what day, what time? How about, I know it's like right. Can you do 5 o'clock today?
Yeah, okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No, that's like usual dinner time and people are like, Jeff, you're crazy. Okay, hold on 1 second then. I'm gonna copy and paste something in the chat for you, Surah. It's the Zoom link. So can you copy and paste the link or do you want me to email it to you?
Can you email it for me?
Yeah,
please?
I have the same. I'm like that too. I'm like, just send me the email. So everybody hang tight and I'll ask you to stay while I do this just so that I know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm gonna stop recording since these are one-on-one questions now.